constitution without constitutionalism, the path of constitutional development in China. Engineering understood that lawmaking is not to be confused with the rule of law, and that having a constitution is not the same thing as making it work. Mainland exemplifies this conventional wisdom. Over the past 3 decades, since the start of economic and legal reform in 1978, Chinese lawmakers at all levels have enacted various laws and regulations, but the country is still grappling with the application of the law to reality. Hence, having a constitutional without constitutionalism is a condition in which China has long been stuck, and for good reason. 2001, when the Supreme People Court explicitly adopted the 1982 Constitution for the first time, in one of its active decisions, many constitutional experts argued for the need for a review, but to no avail. The brief life of Xi Yuling's decision illustrates that the failure to enact a reconsideration is itself an effect rather than the root cause of constitutional shortcoming, and that the effort of some elected judges or administrators are insufficient to produce sustainable constitutional progress. If reconsideration is necessary for constitutionalism, and constitutionalism is good for the benefit of most people, then the people themselves are main driving funds for constitutional progress. The second development is the unofficial but symbolized by the Sun Xikang incident in 203, when the public for the first time sent 989 violent protests, mostly via the internet, against the decollacy of local officials, which was followed by frontal attack. The sanction and rather now notorious, which severely restrict freedom of movement and discriminate against peasants. This article will review the main constitutional event RRP development, official and unofficial, and will examine the cause of their success or failure. Ultimately, this will point to an inherent limitation that thwarts the populist path to constitutionalism when forced to grow in an institutional structure, where various governing bodies view the constitution more as a threat to the political power of a small minority than as a protection of basic rights for all. According to Western standards, the Chinese constitution is a dead letter. China lacks meaningful implementation mechanism and is not guarded against official breaches. It declares a long list of good ideals without the capacity to fulfill anything. To ask Giovanni Sartori, it is simply facade, which seems useful, if at all, simply to fake the image of the government. As striking from a Western perspective, the difference between constitutional norm and reality is by no means extraordinary in the context of Chinese history. Some of this ambiguous because clearer with his historical hindsight. It is reported that approaching of Hans on repeated cruel corporal punishment and reply him with whip. However, not all types allow enforcement to this can be reduced to bamboo measure, and the ambiguity and absurdity inherent in any law has profitable opportunity for information officer to democracy, where the government is held accountable by voters through general election and periodic review. Disparities between law and reality will not belong tolerance because it means withholding from the people the public could promise in law. However, in other ancient countries where electoral or judicial check of government do not exist, the government is isolated from popular pressure, and as such had broad discretion to decide whether to enforce the law. Often these laws are not properly enforced in the regimes. Exciting interest in maintaining the status quo are everything. So, as long as the government finds incentives in enacting good law, but disincentive is enforcing them. Then law and reality will never be the same. Regulations that are possibility detrimental to public good will not only be thrown up, but as a rule, will implement it effectively, even with impunity. Even the most recent constitutional amendment of 204, which are generally thought to reflect rapid progress in the growing public awareness of human rights, have failed to prove all that satisfactory regularity on the compensation for the appropriation of property, which to take literally. Yet, clearly, the incentive to make compelling legislation is present in China, a country that has been committed to the Confucian doctrine of benevolent government for more than 20 years. As mentioned correctly put in a true kingdom, the power were the most important, the good of the earth and grain was next, and the king was the least. It has become China unrevealed social is not become China unrevealed social consensus that the legitimate government should do everything for the people. The theory supported by former General Secretary Jiang Zemin, for example, held that the Chinese Communist Party should represent the most basic interests of most people. Long held Confucianism treat the people as the foundation of the state, even without giving them any meaningful opportunity to participate in government. 182 in practical election were always correctly manipulated. Losing their position and that elected representative will exert greater effort in examining official corruption and abuse of power, but also that higher cadres with less control of the appointment process and the sort of the personnel benefit that accommodated it, and even simply increasing the capacity of the judiciary. A constitutional amendment seemed to mandate the administration of the state according to law and establishing a social state according to the rule of law. What often the status quo as effective legal avenue would then to naturally limit the decrease of official pharaoh's level and reduce opportunity to sue for previous. This was the point Confucius used over and over to persuade emperor and king to practice humanity and truth, but this sickly more subtle version of the rationalist argument is likely to fail for several reasons. A monarch would derive his authority from a traditional hereditary kingdom may maintain his long-term view of the state, whose subject and property are owned ostensibly by himself and his family for a indefinite period. At last, as long as his family managed to defend the crown, by party leader Shen Deng Xiaoping initiated the retreat card reform in 1982. Finally, even if some elite leaders in the very top circle are willing to consider the long-term welfare of the party and the state and expect the goodwill by enacting good law and regulation, they share with the assistant emperor of the same incompetence to enforce them directly of every value overseen their enforcement by lower-ranking official. The latter has every intention to refuse enforcement of any law or regulation that will benefit people at their expense. If selfish officials tend naturally to ignore the Constitution, more people may begin to take it seriously because, after all, it should have interest that the Constitution was drawn up in the first place. The heart of this idea is captured clearly by the story of an old man who upheld the Constitution against gangsters. He had been developer to destroy his house. It is also true that without adequate institutional support, most people will fail to live up to their constitution claim. Awareness of and support for the Constitution, however minimal, has made a Awareness of and support for the Constitution, however minimal, has made a decisive difference in certain situations. For several reasons, a constitution that is not upheld can still be useful for protecting the rights and interests of the people. First and foremost, most governments care about their own image, and authoritarian governments are no exception. Nor nor is it difficult to find reason for the downgrading of the government. Disobedience to the constitution and excessive uncontrolled abuse of power will cause hardship and tragedy for the common people, fueling enormous social discontent and resentment, and in the end, tarnishing the government image, unless, of course, the government is powerful enough to prevent the spread of news. It is not like during this time the media have undergone considerable revelation, particularly as China is integrating now with a world where nation geographic barriers are effectively being transcended by the internet. Although local governments have tried consistently to hide negative incidents of official corruption, social conflict, and disaster, such as mass explosion, environmental disaster, and scandal related to poisoned food or traffic drugs, where local officials will be held accountable for negligence of their duties. It is increasingly difficult to hide this truth from the public.
In fact, not every day. It is easy to find on the internet new indices upon where the claim goes to the government official. These requests often cannot help but because the central government they take action to report its bad image. Second, it's not every effort to describe out them. Rings as they be selfish organisms. Interest so is their one possession and subtraction. In China, for example, the system that have to bring order to you. Full in confusion classic into the ruling class, a process that helped to maintain at least a vague relationship between government and society. The same offers apples in China today, where the government absorbed the form academia, business and the professional elites. In part, among the people's common work was first broken by extent, bastards were singled a covenant argument to different in economic filling in and for forces in 100 1978. Major Russian economic reforms were carried out by the central government. Under the central government, landscape of Deng Xiaoping were quickly recounting the violation of Kyung's forehead as the plenary session of the government party central committee. Protection of property companies, establishment of the rule of law, and respect for human rights and private property. Government information, with the action of citizen text to all locks, government to ensure local disaster. In addition, in preferred balance for those who know with home information. Finally, well, it is true that the government government even more powerful when it's come to informing. This government levels and external consideration. This does not win that as well or utterly. This list only that their person often are regularly offers when they person discover for us when are will be found who listed in understated comment to the rule of law. In the claims made by law are not everyday enforced the purpose of the law. At the very least, give moral state to people was interest shall be perfected and helps morality to the wider public that the government is acting in the warning way. In particular, in later years, as popular and of the concept of rule of law on constitution has inserted to the point where already people began to see relationship between the more differ in the curriculum and the practice. In protest, the role of the applying the constitution and the law. Consequently, for that of for their on protest to public records and release companies to a certain level. So, when the central government enacted progressive law and constitutional amendments, the were popular pressure to implement the new norms. New law may not be equipped with an effective implementation measure. Still, it reflects the normative concepts of society. In cannot government constraints, private property, the rule of law, and cannot travel administrative. This cover on information, procedural justice, or the other features are generally see as on the property of Chinese law. In 1990, his the Barcelona action to enter a special profession of mass expert with the Chinese Commerce School. Her acute letter was told by her classmate Skin. While later student under her name and went on to get a dentist job at the bank after graduating. Sang Guang ordered the different to pay 35 yuan. Perfect being the consistent was filled. The Samsung he called for the order the difference to pay young for the max of pay key for them is constitutional right of the education. The decision when is often held as China's first court case was officials do execution the constitution for the first time. From the community and produce one of the academic literature cutting the importance of Kunstler Tuesday. Unfortunately, second development of for developing consultancy from rights. In this year there have been several cases of painting where the painting is one but it is on the court allowed nothing has been decided on the basis of the constitution. For clear result accompanying are cases the kinds of action the non-influence hepatitis B, virus cases, which have led to record cases where, for example, the second application for murder all of their anger. The victim alleged that the Secretariat conducted a violation of inquiries to hold public office as popularity pay Article 33 of the Constitution, which states that all citizens are equal before the law. The whole city court declares the denial of the Constitution invalid on the basis of insufficient evidence, both that of the constitutional constitution altogether. In fact, the chief administrative of the Iron High Corporate appeared to say that the Constitution cannot be upheld because the quality process is limited to its application of law rather than the classic of law then was Constitution. 207 same even with the extension of a constitutional ruling and movers to remove its equality from the Cosbook. In December 208, the SPG published a document that accurately illustrates the legal effects of several judicial expansion in the past. among which is King Yuling's cast in the only on without a brief explanation. In that, the ups and downs of King Yuling's recent affair can be understood thoroughly only in the excerpt of border historical forms. In it, where former SPC President Pyongyang in 100, 1999, second term maintenance during the real introduction. The members from animal to produce liberal police corps, and they have succeeded in changing the image of the journalist from army uniform and study ranks of the the current lesson that people's core has testimony, free from in-pay administration, organs, and social growth. Now, more than 10 years research in the equation, China's judicial power is at crossroads. Smith, Lawson, Wangchuk, and Richardson. The path of China's judicial power, in general and the Qingyong tenants in particular, clear attest to the fast days, without popular awareness and support. The express version of the constitutional and legislation will remain inactive, with limited effects. After all, since the essence of a modern constitution is to protect the rights and interests of the people, it makes sense that constitutional policies will not be effective honest and until the people themselves ask for it. The people who revolutionary belong first to slavery and the establishment of a family response system, which recognizes their basis in the agricultural land and process for their offense to the abolition of the prison and restaurant service and the form of the hostile housing system, which have taken us parents to the that they social former that have country China has mother tongues program in demonstrate since economic reform began. Not a well government official were active and put the continuous bus singer to prepare orderly men and women. This series of event format what become known as San Sigas model, which will continue development and rubber in Finland as lies as long as the basic power sector and briefing model of constitutional permitting unit. Sun Xinjiang at 27-year-old learned from the Wuhan School of Science and Technology from the work as Fusion Center in an economical diversity. Ability after with management professional about the medical records in the official report states the she did from a heart attack and cerebral engagement, which was so by the autopsy report which shown lump on her back. Over the next month, the same the strong effort of Mrs. Sons, and friend. The constitutive is preferred to explain the rate of Mr. Son's death. Compulsory development of vegan and beggars. Based on the course of expert half of you on accord and give fair system. Health for backbones and backbones shall be gave community and according to the requirements and of the people. The incident on the reform of the social system, education, town authority program, criminal justice, and the death penalty and land and urban renovation project that influence the component of health. Zigang, because the Leslie shared the same product that triggered an assessment of the same. Sun Xinjiang in late 2009, Sun Xinjiang's model conduct work described in the area of poverty risk and government over the consequences. And the story involved the party since in the era 100 and 1090, China has got the pace of urbanization and urban renovation. The development has been seconded by public land technologies or more recreational. The large power of local government to regulate the real to land and the lack of constant development for fair competition. This is crucial to and official it for effort development and offer equivalent of poverty. They never spread on the internet. Stupid, stupid or pay a video shot by a neighbor and or telephone. Well vividly recorded the self-emergent city Filmation as the house in an illegal construction located in a rural condition. This vision makes little difference, as there is a public pressure to remove the development regulation. They claim the legal system affects the legal arm of the state council immediately responded. The public prefers the same day the petition.
A number of is constitutional weakness. However, the final version is still awaiting a destination, apparently waiting for the settlement of central legation difference, especially regarding the provision of alternative revenue for regions after the fiscal contribution from land sales has been drastically reduced by the way regulation. Also, the Office of the Legal System expressed a willingness to demand fair competition and different narrow the definition of the public interest in the new regulation is thus not appropriate confident. The central laws and police and enjoying discrimination in deciding the extent of implementation. It remains to be seen whether or to what extent San Zhigang's model with success. Again, it providing meaningful protection for people property right basic livelihoods. Despite the constitutional activism on the part of the judiciary represented by the Xi Yuling case, China's constitutional progress continues along populist lines initiated by the San Zhigang incident. Further, China's constitutionalism is moving forward at a very slow and difficult pace. Usually, it takes a sacrifice of human life to raise to spread public awareness, created sovereign social impact to move the central government to take any action. Their magnitude create the level of public impact necessary to bring about limited institutional reform. Second, the result are very encouraging. Consider how San Zhigang's convoluted model works. First, there must be confident case of social impact, which are not too hard to find given the problematic nature of the exciting institutional framework creating many such on a daily basis and in terms of diversity. Furthermore, the facts of the incident must be disseminated in the context of a media environment that is regulated to us to have a broad impact on public awareness. The social impact created should encourage the central government to act, which is politically confident enough to carry out institutional reform in the relevant areas. And finally, the measures taken by the central government need to be implemented not only by the specific government or department that caused the tragedy, but also by all lower government at all levels. And in fact, many victims of institutionalism is just stage had died before San Zhigang and Tang Fuzhen died. But these deaths were not rewarded or had insufficient social repercussion that prevented the central government to take further action. In this respect, the San Zhigang case in coincidence because the central government happens to agree with the wider public that some things need to be done about the DR system. And here, the central government can take clear action, namely to abolish it. In other areas, even in the central government has made designation from police should not be implementation. Everywhere with the same effect. In the reserves in several detection centers where destination suspects died of unexplained causes. And ever more, this error has not been corrected to this day. 105 to the Hebei Provincial High Court opportunity the death penalty for Nai Shobing, who has convicted and then exercised for murder, only find out the night was in content 10 years later. When the real killer was caught in another offense, the uncertainty of constitutional progress is rooted in a lack of institutional support for causes popular with the masses. Unlike a liberty democracy where the government and any lever is accountable to its constitutions, the regular election to government in China is not directly subject to electronic pressure and therefore is not obligated to take popular action. The outcome of such judgment is uncertain and it varies with local circumstances and the particulars of demonstration regular has proven to be a difficult process. Talk with resistance from the local government. In fact, in uncertainty waiting for the revised regulation has prompted local government to accelerate plans for confiscation and demolition, and it has causes several tragedies comparable to the event of Tangfuzin. The main flaw of San Zhigang's model is seen in the fact that the general public plays a passive rather than an active role, giving a moral of disapproval of certain events when they arise and which usually involve seriously problems such as housing, the occurrence of tragedy and an inability to prevent conflict, but also very limited in its capacity to correct the mistakes generated by anachronistic institutional arrangements that are naturally prone to corruption and abuse of power. In fact, even the Chinese public has suffered from poor judgment to solve problems that lie at their root. The community itself needs to stand up and participate actively in public decision making and play a role in overseeing its implementation. Recently, a new and more promising trend of public participants has emerged in China, where citizens play a more active role in local policy making in tertiary administration. For example, test takers are still required to carry out medical examination, of which the hepatitis B virus examination is one of the items. A positive test result is sufficient basis for rejection. 66 only talks the continuous effort of NGOs such as Urine Pink, led by Lu Jun and other activities, did the Ministry of Hygiene finally move to eliminate hepatitis B discrimination in education and work altogether. 73 in 2009, when the municipal residents began to worry about the damage to their immediately every moment caused by burning garbage after several baths. The Zhengzhou government publicly expressed its willingness to consider alternative plans that appears to have broader public support. 74. This example demonstrates the possibility of a more positive and promising approach to curbing arbitrary discretion from local government in policy making, together with collective action against discriminatory treatment of hepatitis B carriers. This example illustrates that where the vital interests of the identified group are seriously harmed, it's likely to take positive action to address numbers own concerns and to use the interest as well as traditional media effectively to give more impact to sound. However, even these examples of successful civic participation have, by and large, the same limitation and those shown in the San Zhigang's model. Of course, such limited respect and restraints is not guaranteed anywhere else. 77 years later, a similar PX chemical plants will be installed upstream, let it relative to the more densely populated city of Chengdu, the capital of Sichuan province. China's constitutional experience collaborator Larry Kramer based on popular constitution 79 because it proves that constitutional will not arise from a constitution if the community does not actively participate in its their own freedom. The constitution is still useful for protection people's rights, but as this article has shown, only at a very high cost in an unpredictable and unsystematic way. Normatively, there is not doubt that the people are the highest authority from whence the government derives its power, whence is carried out solely for the interests of the people. The failure to do so is explained by a fault that lies somewhere in the constitutional framework to when society participates in governance, as Mencius pointed out over 2,000 years ago. Law cannot be enforced by itself. 81 and this preciously why we need to morally bound and institutionally bound government to enforce the laws faithfully. Some the success such as the Sun Zhigang case, the Tengfazan incident, the Sheikh Ward of Xiamen, when measured by the far greater number of failures in China's everyday public life, illustrate that the struggle for right can become a battle on a very steep hill without institutionalism support from challenges the political and constitutional supremacy. And next, the people, this institutional frame a context that will provide people's participant with some substance and concrete effect in the constitutional order. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.